Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Sorry for the change this week, moving to a Friday from the Wednesday, but during the course of December, this is how it will be. So, you've come here to join me for the Snapdragon Sew Along hosted by Pat Sloan. This time we're using a paid pattern and I've provided a link in the description box to where you can download this pattern from. I'll be doing a block tutorial, a sashing tutorial and a borders tutorial for this Sew Along. So, jump over, grab your pattern, come back and I'll show you how to do it. So here we are with the Snapdragon Sew Along. I'll just be making one block in this example, as this block is then just repeated 12 times with 12 different fabrics or the number required for the size that you're making. So as you can see here, I do have all my pieces and parts cut out, but with H and B, I made them slightly larger than the size recommended in the pattern, just so that I would have some wiggle room to trim down once the half square triangles were made. We'll then put J and D aside, there for the 4 patches in the center of the block later, and I and C are for the sew and flips on the half square triangles that we create first of all with the H and the B pieces. To create these half square triangles, we will take 2 of our white background squares and draw a diagonal line from corner to corner. Match that up with our color of choice for the block that we're making. Originally, when I was filming the video, I was going to make 2. I do only actually make 1 as we progress through. Once we've drawn that line from corner to corner on our blocks, we will take that to the sewing machine and stitch 1/4 of an inch on each side of our drawn line. We will then slice that down the middle, press to the darker of the 2 fabrics, and trim to size. Let's go. Just while I'm pressing those half square triangles to the dark side, this is your reminder to please like my video, share it with a friend, subscribe if you haven't done so already, but most importantly, tickle the little bell and you'll be notified of all of my upcoming videos. It's now time to square up the half square triangles that we just made for this first step, and to do so I do mine 2 at a time, making sure that I've got my seam nested there. You place the diagonal from your ruler on the stitching line, and then you make sure that you have enough fabric outside your required trim down measurement before trimming away 2 sides, rotating the block and trimming away the remaining 2 sides. So now we need to take our letter C squares, and we only need 4 for each block, and these are going to create a sew and flip on the colored side of our half square triangles. To work the sew and flip, you draw a diagonal line on the back of each of the small white squares, place them in the corner of the colored square, lining up all of the edges in the direction shown in the pattern. And then we're going to take it to the sewing machine and stitch just 1 thread width to the right of our drawn line. And we'll take that press it over, make sure that all of our edges are meeting and lined up and there's no overhang or it's not under. We'll then trim the back 2 layers away and the sew and flip on this side will be done. With those sewn on now, I'm just going to clip those apart. I am then going to fold back the sew and flip that I've placed on there and check that all of our edges still line up and that our block will remain square. After that, I will give it a press to cement this in and then trim away the back 2 layers. With all 4 of those complete now, we move to our pieces labeled I and repeat the process on the other side of our half square triangle. If you need an in-depth and close-up view of the sew and flip method, I will put a link in the top right-hand corner of the screen to a video on just that subject, as well as leaving a link in the description below. With all of our sew and flip units now made, it's time to move on to the hourglass blocks, which are the next component that we need for our overall construction. For this, you need your piece A and piece G squares, and we're going to start off by making half square triangles, the same as we did earlier, except this time we won't be trimming down. There is an extra step first. If you need an in-depth tutorial on how to do the half square triangles 2 at a time, I will place a card in the top right hand corner of your screen or in the description box below. As I said before, now that we've created our half square triangles 2 at a time, this is where we need to take an extra step to make our hourglass blocks. We nest them together the same as I would if I was about to trim them down, but we don't. What we need to do now is draw another diagonal line corner to corner across the seam allowance, and you make sure that you have opposing colors on each side. We'll then take that to the sewing machine and sew 1/4 of an inch on each side of this drawn line, slice them down the middle and press again. And then we will trim down the hourglass block. In the pattern, it gives you a pressing direction of just going over to one side, but I am going to swirl my seams, and as in previous videos, we do this by breaking apart those little few stitches on the other side of our seam line, twisting them around, and then pressing all of the seam allowances in the same direction. I'll show you on the back once I'm done. And this is what that would look like on the back once that is done. It just makes the center of the block nice and flat, and as you can see, all of the seam allowances are going in the same direction, and it creates a tiny four patch in the center. I'll just show you that once again. Give it a little twist to open up those stitches, and then, sorry this is off camera folks, make sure that all your seam allowances are going in the right direction and give it an all over press. With those units made now, we do need to trim them down. Much like a half square triangle, we will rely on the 45-degree angle on our ruler, but we also need to find the center point of our unfinished measurement. In this case, we are trimming down to 5.5 inches. So what we need to do is place the 2 3/4 mark dissecting exactly in the middle. So on the X and Y axes, making sure we've got 5.5 inches outside our cutting area. You can tell also on the ruler, because the 5.5 mark should hit those seam allowances where you're going to trim. Trim 2 sides, rotate the block, match up your 5.5 inch line on your freshly cut edge, make sure your diagonal is still along that seam line, and double check that you still have 2 3/4 in the center of the block. If you would like me to do a separate video focusing just on quarter square triangles alone, please let me know in the comments below and I'll work towards getting that done. In the meantime, you can check out the construction for the strawberry shortcake quilt, and I go through in depth quarter square triangles both with this method and using pre-cut triangles. The final component we need is a 4-patch for the center of our block before we can head to final construction. We'll take 2 D squares and 2 of our J squares in the matching color and create a 4-patch for the center. We lay it out in a checkerboard style, sew the vertical seams, press those to the darker of the 2 sides, and then sew the horizontal seam. You can spin the seams in the center of this, or you can just press to one side. With all of the pieces we need now made, we can move on to the final construction of the block. We need to lay it out as per the pattern directions, or I've inserted a little image in the top left hand corner, and then the block is actually put together in a 9-patch fashion, much like all the blocks that we do for Block Wednesday and most blocks in general. 9-patch construction has you sew the vertical seams first, followed by the 2 horizontal seams. You will notice throughout that I swirl some of the intersections, some I just press to the side. The choice is yours on this final construction. I also do clip some of the seams along the way, just to control which way the bulk is going, where our half square triangles and our squares meet. Just while we're going through this section, folks, I just thought I'd take this opportunity to ask everybody, what do you get up to for the holidays? How will you be celebrating the holidays? Do you spend it with family? Do you spend it away? Why don't you let me know in the comments below. Throughout December, there will be no videos on a Wednesday, but I will be doing 2 a week from the end of the month So after the Snapdragon, which is each Friday on the 28th of December, I will be starting videos for the Tula Pink Butterfly Quilt Sew Along. So look out for that in the near future. Thanks for joining me this week, folks, for the block tutorial for the Snapdragon Sew Along. Be sure to come back next week where we go through sashing, and the week after that for borders. If you've liked what you've seen today, why don't you share my video with a friend? Subscribe if you haven't done so, but most importantly, tickle the little bell to be notified of all future updates. That's all for this week. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.